Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, to Dr. Emily Town's work on womanist ethics, to Ariana Grande's God is a Woman, feminist theologies permeate faith communities, political debates, and pop culture.
Equality between all genders. This is the ideal at the heart of feminism. What does it mean to support gender equality in the context of our UU faith tradition? How do we articulate the blessing of women and their autonomy? The blessing of choice, the blessing of feminism.
How do we put our commitment into action? In what ways can we celebrate the diversity of gender in our congregation and in the world? Ponder these questions with us
in our new worship series,
Feminist Theologies.
Good morning, UUCA and guests and visitors. My name is Leroy Kennedy. I'm your sabbatical music director for the next few months, and I am thank you. And I'm absolutely elated to spend that time with you, you all getting to know me and me getting to know you as well. We want to welcome and encourage you to take full part in the worship service today. Find you a place where you can be present, sing along with the hymns, light your chalice at home, and close your eyes doing meditation so that you can connect with yourself as well as the universe. Can we all join together now and let's sing our opening hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday morning worship with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta, a beloved community that changes lives. I'm Reverend Jonathan Rogers, and I am delighted to be with you this morning. It is of particular meaning for me to join y'all on a Women's Herstory Month service on male feminism, because being a UU has taught me so much about what it means to be a male feminist. From youth group conversations in high school about toxic masculinity to our whole lives, comprehensive sexuality class discussions about gender, I am so grateful for how this faith has helped me to think about maleness and gender equity. We're so glad you are with us this morning because UUCA is transforming lives through courageous action and soulful connection. Wherever you are from, whatever path you are on, whomever you love, you are welcome here.
Good morning. I am Tracy Gagne, a lay minister here at UUCA, and I'm pleased to be your liturgist today. Here are this morning's announcements. As you can see from our guests in the room today, our sanctuary is open. We would love to see your beautiful masked faces this spring. Register now to attend service in person by visiting the Events tab on your Realm account. That's right, it's time to enter a new realm. Haven't set up your account yet? Be transported by emailing Communications Director Shay Stewart to get your account set up. Get to know your spiritual neighbors. Join the adult religious education team for the Neighboring Faith series with speakers from Atlanta's Interfaith Speakers Network, ISN. For our next online session, this Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., we focus on Judaism. ISN Chair David Schoenberg will speak to the core tenets of the Jewish faith and common misconceptions. It's so good to connect with one another. Catch up with your UUCA community by joining our lay ministry team after service in the Zoom Room Social Hour. We'll see you there. And once again, we are joyful that you have chosen to worship as part of this transformative community on this beautiful Sunday morning. While many of our congregation will be attending an annual retreat next week, our own uuca.org/live link will lead you next week to join our sister congregation, Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in Bethesda, Maryland. That's next Sunday at the same time, 11 a.m. Just go to uuca.org/live, where Cedar Lane will warmly welcome our visiting congregation. Through the live chat, we can express love and care for each other. Please take a moment to say hello to each other and anyone else who may be visiting into this morning's worship.
Each Sunday morning, UU congregations across the country and around the world are united in the ritual of lighting a chalice flame, which represents our search for truth and justice. Whether you're watching at home or with us here in the sanctuary, please join us in saying the chalice lighting words together.
Invite all who yearn for acceptance and ignite our passion for justice and peace.
This morning, we had scheduled Christopher McKnight to join us and be our service soloist, but unfortunately, yesterday I got word from him that he was not feeling well, and so therefore he's not able to be with us on today. So we do wish him well and wish him a speedy recovery. So therefore, I am filling in for this spot on today. And I'm going to be singing Not My Father's Son from the musical Kinky Boots. When I was just a kid, everything I did was to be like him. Under my skin, my father always thought if I was strong and fought, not like some albatross, I'd begin to fit in. Look at me, powerless and holding my breath, trying hard to repress what scared him to death. It was never easy to be his type of man. To breathe freely was not in his plan, and the best part of me is what he wouldn't see. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not in me. So I jumped in my dreams and found an escape. Maybe I went to extremes of leather and lace, but the world seemed brighter 6 inches off the ground, and the air seemed lighter. I was profound, and I felt so proud just to live out loud. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not in me. The endless torrent of expectations swirling inside my mind wore me down. I came to the realization and I finally turned around to see that I could just be me. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not in me.
And now, please join us in our movement prayer, led by Ona Politsa.
First we bow to honor the spirit of life. We lift our arms and embrace the gifts of spirit. We bring these gifts unto ourselves with gratitude. Breathe, smile. We share these gifts with the world and remember to be present. Honor, embrace, gratitude, share, be present.
Could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Let us put hands on hearts. Feel the warm connection. Let love in this moment flow. Say to yourself silently, I will love myself. I will love others. And that love will heal the world. At this time, we hear the joys and sorrows of this congregation. We send our love to the family of Ruth Gogol. Ruth passed away on Friday, March 18th, on her own terms. Please send cards to her family at her current address. She wanted her ashes scattered at our new memorial garden. Please stay tuned for details on a small ceremony this summer. Ruth's prolific artistic contributions to this congregation over the course of decades helped to make UUCA the community that it is. She will be greatly missed. And we are sending our healing energy to our own Reverend Taryn Strauss this morning, who is recovering from a stomach virus at home. Reverend Taryn wishes deeply that she could be with us this morning, but we are wishing her a speedy recovery. No phone calls or texts, please, as we give Reverend Strauss peace in which to heal. You are invited to say the names of people you're holding in your heart this morning. Speak their names into this holy space now. May all beings find connection. May all people find comfort. May all of us find ways to be more loving to one another. As humans have gathered for millennia, so we gather on this day to gently surrender to something beyond ourselves, to humbly acknowledge our mistakes, to ask forgiveness, to seek hope and renewal, to honor the earth that supports and sustains life, to remember that all beings are inextricably and mysteriously connected. Now we still our bodies and we still our minds. We take a big breath. And then we exhale. We relax into this space that our intentions make sacred. We enter into the wise silence.
How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than old? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
The Unitarian Universalist Association Side with Love public advocacy campaign amplifies the voices of the oppressed. We show up in partnership at justice events across the country. We lobby national leaders on immigration reform, racial justice, equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, religious freedom, voting rights, and more. And above all, we work to make love real in the world. Unitarian Universalists affirm unconditional, universal love as a foundation and grounding for our actions in the world. We strive to be of service to our communities and advocate for change on local, state, national, and international levels. Recently, members of UUCA have been part of 2 Side with Love efforts, UU the Vote and Communities Not Cages. UU the Vote and the 2020 Get Out the Vote campaign embodied our 5th principle, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. For decades, Unitarian Universalists have engaged in voter registration and voter rights work as an expression of our values. Working to end disenfranchisement is one way we can show people that their vote and their voice matters, and it helps hold electoral officials as well as ourselves accountable for living out the values we express. Another Side with Love initiative is Communities Not Cages, which holds actions nationwide partnering with grassroots organizations to hold up the dignity of asylum seekers and refugees as they go through the lengthy and stressful resettlement process, often being made to feel unwelcome by our fellow citizens. One such action was held March 3rd to support the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights rally against the expansion the Folkson Ice Processing Center into the nearby recently closed federal prison. The number of displaced people around the world has accelerated dramatically in recent years. According to the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, UNHCR, in just the first half of 2021, 84 million people had been displaced. This was before we pulled out of Afghanistan and before the invasion of Ukraine, which has seen almost 3 million people displaced in 3 weeks. The recipient of Give Away the Plate this month goes to our own parent organization, Unitarian Universalist Association's Side with Love campaign to support UU the Vote, Communities Not Cages, and their many other important efforts. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
How much of my mother has my mother left in me? How much of my love will be insane to some degree? And what about this feeling that I'm never good enough? Will it wash out in the water, or is it always in the blood? How much of my father am I destined to become? Will I dim the light inside me just to satisfy someone? And will I let this woman kill me or do away with jealous love? Will it wash out in the water or is it always in the blood? I can feel the love I want, I can feel the love I need, but it's never gonna come the way I am. Could I change it if I wanted? Could I rise above the flood? Will it wash out in the water or is it always in the blood? How much like my brothers do my brothers want to be? Or will a broken home become another broken family? Will we be there for each other like nobody ever could? Will it wash out in the water or is it always in the blood? I can feel the love I want, I can feel the love I need, but it's never gonna come the way I am. Could I change it if I wanted? Could I rise above the flood? Will it wash out in the water or is it always in the blood? I can feel the love I want, I can feel the love I need, but it's never gonna come the way I am. Could I change it if I wanted? Could I rise above the flood? Would it wash out in the water or is it always in the blood?
So much gratitude to UUCA's Director for Communications, Shay Stewart, for filling in on short notice for our ill guest musician, Chris McKnight. And now, please join me in the dedication of our offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community, we dedicate our lives, and these our offerings.
Thank you.
Some folks in ministerial formation, you meet them and their spiritual presence is palpable right away. Such is the case with our speaker this morning, and I'm really looking forward to what he has to say. Here to present our reading and homily, I'm pleased to welcome UUCA ministerial intern Aidan McMahon.
Thank you, Reverend Rogers. Our reading for today is an excerpt from the poem Coniferous Fathers by Michael Kleber Diggs. Let's grow fathers from pine, not oak, coniferous fathers, raising us in their shade, fathers soft enough to bend, fathers who love us like their fathers couldn't, fathers who can talk about menstruation while playing a game of pepper in the front yard. No, take baseball out. Let's discover a new sport. Fathers as varied and vast as the superior forest. Let's kill off sternness and play down wisdom. Give us fathers of laughter and fathers who cry. Fathers who say, check this out, or I'm scared, or I'm sorry, or I don't know. Give us fathers strong enough to admit they want to be near us, that they've always wanted to be near us. Give us fathers desperate for something different, not Johnny Appleseed, not even Atticus Finch, No more Rolling Stones, no more lazy boy dads reading newspapers in some other room. Let's create folklore side by side, in a garden singing psalms about abiding. Just that, abiding. Being steadfast, present, evergreen, and ethereal. Let's make the old needles soft enough for us to rest on, dream on, next to them. So ends the reading. When I was growing up, it was common for boys to insult each other by critiquing each other's masculinities. I was subject to a lot of this. I was unathletic and not particularly interested in sports, more prone to sadness than anger, and what you might call nerdy. That hasn't changed much, admittedly. These traits had a whole host of implications in the minds of my classmates about my gender, my sexuality, and my physiology, which they felt compelled to share with me. There's an academic term for this: gender essentialism. It means there's only one right way to be a man or a woman. To the gender essentialist, man, male, and masculine are all inextricably knotted together, as are their gendered mirror. It is heteronormative, it lacks the nuance needed for intersex people, and either does not acknowledge or treats with extreme disdain transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary people. It is insidious, and traces of it can be found nearly everywhere, such as in colloquialisms like man up, and in the prevalence of so-called locker room talk. And it is an integral part of toxic masculinity. Feminism, our current topic, amongst its many functions, provides a critique of gender essentialism. It seeks to untangle those knots of biology, identity, and behavior. Feminism is a necessary deconstructive force. And as the calendar in the UUCA office says, feminism is for everyone, quoting bell hooks. Deconstruction, however, is not the final step in any process. You see, we need foundations to undergird our understandings of the world. Pastor Rob Bell speaks of two types of worldview: the brick wall and the trampoline. If you knock out too many bricks from the brick wall worldview, the whole thing crumbles. With a trampoline, you can remove some springs that have rusted out or aren't doing you any good anymore, while you look for new ones to replace them, and it still functions. The traits of toxic masculinity, like violence, disregard for consent, egotism, and emotional stunting, have always been with us. Our drawing attention to these traits, knocking out those bricks, has made the whole wall crumble, leaving many men to try and rebuild with the shattered pieces, and sometimes the only thing they can find are the very worst parts of our culture of masculinity. To quote Natalie Wynn, a public philosopher and YouTuber, we tell men that they are broken without really telling them how to fix themselves. The very ideas of masculinity and femininity are themselves a tangle of interrelated concepts. Natalie, whom I just quoted, is a trans woman, and she speaks often in her videos about the need to perform gender and how she engages in it so that other people will affirm her womanhood. Compare that with my friend, a lesbian, who has told me that though she is a woman, she identifies more with masculine traits and behavior. And then, There are people who I mentioned earlier who neither identify as man or woman. I am a straight, cisgender man who gravitates towards typically feminine work, first social work and now pastoral care. Regardless of how we identify, we all still use feminine and masculine as descriptors that both define and transcend our understandings of gender and sex. I've been looking for a long time for a definition of masculinity that I felt included me. Because I come out of Christianity, I started with Jesus. And somewhere along the way, I encountered this quote from Father Richard Rohr, a Catholic priest who runs the Center for Action and Contemplation in New Mexico. Jesus had a male body, but a feminine soul. The first time I read this, folks, I had a very strong reaction. It felt like something was ripped away from me. But I admire Rohr with his progressive theology and his universalism, so I kept listening. I learned that his statement comes out of his Trinitarian theology. Apologies. His belief that what Christians call the Holy Spirit is the feminine expression of God. And I think this is important for two reasons. The first is that so much harm has been done by the exclusive masculinizing of God, and that just needs to be named. Thank you. The second is that this illustrates a critical aspect of spirituality and the reconstruction of our ideas. Paradox. So I believe in the idea of Imago Dei, that we are made in the image of the divine. And to me, that divine contains the best of the masculine and the feminine. And if I am made in that image, then I contain the best of the masculine and the feminine within me, and so do all of you. And we've lost this somehow. Historically, balance and integration of the masculine and the feminine have been identified with health and spirituality. And this is around the world. Think of yin and yang from Taoism. Think of anima and animus in Jungian psychology. There's even an entire room at the Carlos Museum at Emory dedicated to the shaman in Central American traditions who was thought to embody both feminine and masculine spirits. The paradox is that masculinity and femininity can only be understood in relation to one another. Toxic masculinity shuns all things it perceives as feminine, which only serves to make it weaker and more fragile. This is why feminism really is for everyone, because it makes the case that your gender or your sex or your presentation need not dictate the other dimensions of your life. That knot is untangled. No one has a claim to either masculinity or femininity. Rather, we all have a claim to both. But I still haven't defined masculinity. Now, we can name parts of our culture that are parts of it that are culturally bound easily enough, and I think we should uphold those things, at least the good ones and the neutral ones, and a lot of it is just neutral. It functions as a kind of balm against toxic masculinity, which is grasping for something to hold on to make an identity out of. My beard, or my love of flannel or chopping wood, have no moral weight. Honestly, that might have more to do with my identity as a New Englander than anything. They're not necessary to masculinity. They just exist, culturally bound. So long as we don't insist on them, I don't think they do us any harm. If I tell you, you have to like chopping wood to be a man, that's a problem. If I say, I like chopping wood, it makes me feel masculine, that's fine. There's springs in my trampoline, and I might replace them later. But you see, I'm interested in a kind of primordial masculinity. And to find that, I think we have to start with femininity, which I feel is the better defined of the two. It has long been understood as the force of nurturance, other love and affirmation. Masculinity must be its complement, not the opposite as it is so often thought and so often taught in toxic masculine spaces. I believe masculinity at the primordial level is a fundamental force of self-care, self-love, and self-confidence. And these both belong to all people. But we are typically socialized into one at the expense of the other. Toxicity is either of these without their counterbalance. Our initial model, be it wall or trampoline, is learned from the adults in our lives. Hopefully, we learn from the feminine forces in our lives that we are loved and have worth. Internalizing this creates the masculine belief in our own value. Meanwhile, masculine forces model skills that help us flourish, teaching us to fill our wells so that we may express feminine care of others. Notice I said masculine forces and feminine forces, not men and women, and that is a critical distinction. Both of these, when healthy, have some of the other in it. We can find value for ourselves in performing acts of care. We can express care through teaching and fostering independence. Think of a time when you have acted out a healthy masculinity or femininity, and I especially encourage you to think of the complementary trait to the one you feel more inclined towards or socialized into. Take hold of that and celebrate it. Model it. You never know who in your life might need to see that balance affirmed in you. Men need that. We all do. But the toxic impulse towards total independence, fostered in so many men, runs counter to the self-care which I believe is part of healthy masculinity. We are meant to hold one another and let ourselves be held and upheld. Feminine in the midst of and in balance with the masculine. It makes me think of Sam and Frodo at the end of The Lord of the Rings, the climax at the slopes of Mount Doom. If you don't know the story, Sam starts as Frodo's gardener. He sees his role as his caretaker in all regards, functioning as the feminine force in Frodo's archetypically masculine hero's journey. When Frodo collapses from the weight of his burden, the ring around his neck, Sam says, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." Tolkien would later say that Sam was the true hero of The Lord of the Rings. It has become something of a trend to read romance into that relationship. And if you do that, that's totally fine, especially if it allows you to see yourself better in that story. But I see their relationship as a deep, intimate friendship, and it frustrates me that we constantly conflate intimacy and sexuality, insisting that their love for each other can only be read sexually is itself a kind of harm, not that unlike what was done by my classmates. We must learn to normalize vulnerability, empathy, and connection between all people, be they men or people of any gender, in all its many healthy forms. In closing, I want to tell you briefly about how my parents have lived into this paradox in my life. I really struggled when deciding to move and attend school here 1,100 miles away from where I grew up. I've always been a bit of a homebody, and the thought of moving far away ate at me. I see this now as actually a deficit in my own masculine energy. When I spoke with my father about the decision, he said to me, "I will miss you, but you need to do what's best for you." A drop of the feminine in his model of masculinity. Likewise, my mother, when we talk on the phone, never fails to say, "I wish you were here right now with me," but often adds in, "I'm so proud of you." A drop of the masculine in her feminine care. May we all be so blessed, and may we all be such a blessing. Thank you.
Though days be dark and storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sisters in my heart, my brother in my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
May we embrace the truth that is found in the paradox. May we bless and be blessed through the masculine and the feminine within us. May we be unafraid and unashamed of intimacy. Go in peace. Go in love. Amen.